how gear for gold transformed raiding forever. This is obviously something I have a lot of opinions on.
Whether it's the small green satchel you found off your first kobold, that pair of common quality shoulders that dropped in the Barrens, or seeing an epic PoE drop, loot in World of Warcraft has always been one of the things that make it exciting, all the way from the start of your journey right to the end game and raiding. In vanilla back in the day, getting your first epic was like a rite of passage. Even if you did manage to see inside a piece of raiding content, the chance you were actually going to be awarded an item among your 39 other raiders wasn't all that high. In TBC, you could reliably expect to get epics from 5-man heroics, but they were difficult. But at least you had badges, so you can eventually guarantee that you can buy something. And in Wrath, well, you'd be hard-pressed not to find some purples on your character after a few weeks. And for some players, the gearing ladder, that going from fresh to bis, is what the game is really all about.
It's all about
and why
the loot.
shouldn't it be? One of the core features of an MMO is that your character exists in a persistent world and gradually gains power. And what better method to gauge that power gain than getting some perps? But getting those perps...
Oh, that I need to do Nax. Bro, like, if this is me, I loot that to myself, I loot this to myself, easy. I just let the other 2 items rot. I'm done. I'm see y'all back in Old War.
Especially the bis ones, whatever the expansion, turns out to be quite difficult. Guilds will reserve items, favour certain raiders over others, or prioritise roles for loot.
Of course.
And pugs are just unreliable and full of drama. People have connection issues after their item doesn't drop, players needing on stuff that's useless for them, and people performing terribly that you have to carry, and of course they are going to roll higher than you when the item you want drops.
That's why you always do everything for rolls. Like, I am a very big believer in loot council. I am a loot council enjoyer. And I will be the first to tell you that if you win the roll on an item, and I feel like you're not trying in my raid, you lose the roll. Bonus rule just happened. Yep, I absolutely do that.
If there is a
you reward winners and you punish losers. If you don't do that, you just get losers.
Better way to do all this, a way to skip the queue, a way to know for almost certain that if an item drops, you'll be able to get it without all the hassle of guilds or forming hard res groups. Well, many years ago, players came to a conclusion that there was, and this is done through gold. We make a raid, we invite a mix of people. Some of them don't need any items, but they're going to perform very well. These are the carry players. Others are fresh level capped characters and they need loads of items, but they're going to perform very poorly. These are the buyers. We run through the content and at the end of it, auction off every piece of gear. Highest bidder wins. No loot drama, no, that's not bis for you. The only metric that matters is how much is this item worth to you. Then at the end, the total pot of gold from all the auctions is divided out amongst the group. Everyone is...
Well, I don't know about that last part. I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at things, and like, you know, every group wants to do it differently. But like, yeah, I mean, GDKPs, like we did GDKPs back in Wrath, like original Wrath, like we started doing this back in, well, the thing is, like, they let you trade gear in, like, Old War or something like that. Before that, you would have to need on the gear and then get a GM to ticket it to the other person, which was, like, really annoying, and so you didn't really do it that much. There were guys in China were doing GDKPs back in BC, but, like, it never really caught on in US until, like, Old War, and, like, it really caught on a lot in TOC, and then by ICC, it was, like, full swing.
Winner. The geared players have a reason to run and farm old content, and the fresh characters walk out with several purples. This loot system is known as GDKP, a mix of the infamous DKP system, which awarded players points based upon various guild set rules such as attendance, boss kills and so on, and they could then go on to use those points to bid on gear, and the G stands for gold, except the whole point system is just replaced by gold. You bid on items with gold. That's it, really.
That's it.
And there's so many benefits to it. Everyone leaves with something. If you don't get items, you get gold. There's no faster way to gear a fresh character than entering a GDKP with a full wallet. You know full well that nobody is going to have connection issues halfway through, because if they do, well, they're not going to get their cut at the end of the raid, are they?
That's the best part about GDKPs, is you can hold people's cut over their head and make them continue. Yeah, this is absolutely. We used to troll people by bidding on BIS trinkets. Yeah, we do the same thing.
You can add further incentives such as a performance cut for players who are best on DPS. This gives people a reason to actually want to try and perform well during these.
If you do GDKPs and you like scamming people out of the money, the best thing to do is add as many of these like different obfuscation measures as possible. That way it's harder for people to reverse engineer the math and see if you're taking gold out of the pot.
Raids. And believe me, since they started to get popular in Classic, there is no gold maker in the entire game which can even remotely compete with taking other players' earnings in exchange for epics. But it shouldn't be a surprise that GDKPs have made a big return to Classic. They are an older invention than even Warcraft as an MMO, having roots in EverQuest alongside the original DKP loot system. Players realized pretty early on that, hey, even though we don't need anything from this content, other people do, and we do need their gold. In original vanilla, the idea of a GDKP was, well, very sparse, which in retrospect, with how much top guilds struggled on progression content, is a bit of a surprise, to be honest, considering that consumables were stacked by the dozen back then too. They would have needed loads of gold. I'm sure there's the odd story of the occasional bit of loot being auctioned off in vanilla, but as a widespread phenomenon, no, it really wasn't.
No, back then, if I remember right, people viewed auctioning off gold for gear in vanilla WoW as like basically scamming.
In TBC, there was a few more rumblings of people frequently joining the odd GDKP, and by the Sunwell patch, all prior raid content had been nerfed, making it really easy and accessible. That being the likes of Tier 4 with Magtheridon, Gruul's Lair, and Karazhan were simple starting points for this loot system, and players would often go and clear the trash at the start of the sun.
We had like kind of a soft GDKP with, yeah, that's right. I think that we did GDKP Kara trash. Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a long time, but I'm pretty sure that we did. I'd have to go back and look at the screenshots. And this is like back in TBC. But like what we would do, or like this isn't even me, like I didn't even run these raids, so the guys in my guild would do, is they would do Gruul's Lair, and they would say that if Dragonspine Trophy drops, we're going to be giving out 5,000 gold. And so people would join because it's like, oh, well, if this item drops, I get paid.
Well, and then sell off the very powerful epic recipes and BOEs. But it was really in Wrath of the Lich King that the GDKP began to show its head as a loot system that more and more players engage with. Particularly, there are many articles out there which began to crop up around mid to late 2010, which in the World of Warcraft timeline was during the ICC patch. And Wrath was the perfect time for this loot system to go viral. By ICC, players were mega geared and could easily go back and crush old content to farm some gold. There was both 10 and 25 man modes for each raid, giving players choice, and as we well know nowadays, Wrath of the Lich King had the highest sub count ever. Lots of potential customers out there for those purples. One of the earliest articles I could find about World of Warcraft and GDKP was from...
And this is the best thing about GDKP is everybody comes out ahead. It doesn't matter if you get the loot or not, everybody gets paid. And that's why GDKP was so appealing to people. And is so appealing.
From a blog released 1 month before Wrath dropped, it quotes a post from Elitist Jerks on how GDKP works. Unfortunately, the Elitist Jerk page link didn't work, but they certainly have the basics down, including the upsides such as players are encouraged to stay right to the end, well-geared main characters are encouraged to come even if they don't want any drops, and well-healed...
I think that's also another big factor, is it gives players that are geared a reason to do raids that they don't need gear from. And that's a huge positive.
Alts can get geared up quickly without much grind. They also highlight the downsides. It encourages gold selling, and if you could spend some real cash for in-game gold and translate it so easily into items via a GDKP run, why would you do anything else? And they
Great question.
do also mention all Blizzard, or any company for that matter, needs to do is complete the circle and sell gold themselves.
This is on Elitist Jerks, right? So like, we could pretty much like guarantee that Ian saw this post. Like 100% he probably saw this shit. Yeah, that is crazy. Wow. Look at that.
Well, we don't quite have that in Wrath. The WoW token came out in Warlords of Draenor, but the gold buying from third-party websites to then spend in-game on items has always been a concern, and a valid one at that. You know, looking through these old articles and posts, at the time GDKP was seen a little cautiously, but generally positively. People like the idea of raiding for gold and having reasons to go back and do old content, which...
Oh, I will say, by the way, I am a big advocate of GDKP. I am a GDKP enjoyer. I think GDKP is good.
For a time was the focus of GDKP. Surely it wouldn't ever replace raiding with the guild on current content, let alone hard mode or heroic content.
No way.
Would it? Enter Classic World of Warcraft. Some 15 years after the original release, the game was back, this time with a very different player base. Instead of Rag living for months, he lived for a number of days. Each and every raid tier upon release was cleared within an hour or less, and those once revered purples flowed like water. Players rather quickly figured out, gee, this content's pretty easy, as well as, man, flasks sure are expensive. What if we were to take the long-standing tradition of the GDKP and bring it back way earlier than it ever was before? And that is indeed what happened. There weren't too many GDKPs early on because, well, you needed some time for the buyers to level up, but by the time Blackwing Lure was out, well, we were well in the swing of things, and prices that items were going for, totally out of the belief of any reasonable person. Oh, and by the way, very early on in Classic, I may hypothetically know that one Classic Gold was worth about 1k retail. No, really.
One Classic Gold was 1 to 1k, so it's like 1 million for 1,000 gold. Yeah, it's about right.
Gold was a huge part of Classic. So when you went out and farmed your 80 gold per hour and thought, that's not half bad, I feel quite good about myself there. And then you went on the internet and read Bone Reaver's Edge goes for 51,000 gold.
Yeah.
Dragonspine Trophy goes for 37,000 gold and a different GDKP. Actually, I'm joking, that's cheap. It went for 46k in this one, for example. And then next
I feel like DST, I mean, that's a best in slot until Nax situation. So, like, yeah, of course people are going to want that.
Came around and you began seeing pots come out at 87k for the entire raid, and perhaps to top it all off, Gressel Dawn of Ruin, the best one-handed sword in the game, selling for a total of 198,000 gold, which is just about 20k shy of the gold cap in the game.
That guy must have farmed a long time. That's a lot of Black Lotuses.
You saw that and thought to yourself, wow, why am I here thieving in Blackrot depths for minimum wage when I could be making thousands an hour instead if I join a GDKP? It begged the question, how on earth is
that's exactly what I did. Like, back in the day, I would 100% join GDKPs. Like, we had a weekly GDKP for ICC that we did. Remember that Death Knight Reinhardt? He used to make PvP videos. That was our raid leader. And we did this back at KT. I got my Bryn Troll, 277, heroic Bryn Troll. I got it in a GDKP run. In his run. I got it for minimum bid, too. It was a good day.
Able to amass such vast quantities of gold, and benefit of the doubt, if they have faithfully been spending 18 hours a day in Diamol East for 3 weeks straight, why would they drop that entire sum of gold, all that work, on one single item? It just doesn't quite add up, does it? Moving into TBC, those BIS items kept dropping and the insane gold bids kept rolling in. Dragonfang Talisman became the new Drakespine Trophy, and there are so many cases of it going for well in excess of 50,000 gold.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I mean, I'm sure Warglaves went for 100k regularly.
Temple brought with it the infamous Warglaves of Azzinoth, often pre-sold to ensure a good price. It wasn't unusual in the early weeks to see them well upwards of 6.
A few have been Bro, how do you have bro, I love how gamers think that somebody, like, we're gonna all be able to get together to, like, not pre-order games, but meanwhile, these fucking fiends can't even stop themselves from pre-ordering an item. That is just fucking degenerate. I love it.
Figures of gold.
This is the kind of stuff, by the way, I love about video games. I think this stuff is amazing. This is the real emergent gameplay that I think gives you just that slight little peek onto the underbelly of the human condition. It is just, oh, it's so good. I love it. Player economies. You love to see it.
For each of these legendary items, warriors with somewhat questionable gear alongside a glade.
Wow. You know, the funny thing with me is that we had a guy win the offhand warglaive in my group too. Except nobody got paid for it. And I'm pretty sure his gear was worse than that. Remember that guy?
Would occasionally begin to appear on your server, and during the opening week of the Sunwell, a GDKP cleared the entire instance, netting a total pot of just in excess of 1 million gold, during which Thoridal the Star's Fury dropped and was bought for the unreal price of 350,000 gold.
By the way, like, Thoridal was only, like, marginally fucking better than Golden Bow of Quel'Thalas. I'm pretty sure, right? Can anybody correct me on that? I remember whenever the game came out, there was a big discussion about, like, whether it was even good or not. Yeah, it looks cool, though. Yeah, it does. It's crazy for hunters. But you don't need arrows? Yeah, true. I remember, didn't the first bow ever go to a rogue?
By a warrior. And in Wrath, it's still early days, but prices are down on what they used to be.
Of course it was a warrior. Warriors are always the biggest whales. It's the same as in Lost Ark. Anytime you see somebody with a really high item level in Lost Ark, it's a berserker. Every single time.
In Classic and TBC due to generally more gearing options and smaller raid sizes.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is the potential downside of GDKPs encouraging gold buying is very, very real. There is quite literally no other part of the game that deals with volumes of gold this large.
Yes.
In fact, it wasn't till Wrath where Blizzard started putting things in the game such as the Dalaran Epic Rings for just under 8k or the Traveler's Tundra Mammoth for 16k that there was an actual reason to have this much cash lying about. Before that, it was all player driven, and
we did have the bag in Burning Crusade, and 5,000 gold was a pretty hefty fucking fee in Burning Crusade as well. There were gold sinks in BC, but he's absolutely right that there were way more in Wrath.
in Classic, player-driven meant somebody had nearly 200,000 gold to spend on one item. Today, we are still in Tier 7, with Ulduar expected early 2023, and it's going to be pre-nerf Ulduar 2 with boosted item level gear, and I can tell you without a doubt that GDKPs will clear it week 1. Remember, Thoridal went for 350,000 gold week 1. Imagine the price of
I find it unlikely that a GDKP will clear 0 light on week 1 on 25 men. If you assume 5 people there are not really playing the game, 20 manning, 0 light, pre-nerf, with 21 to 20 people alive, I mean, it seems unlikely. But we'll see. I could be wrong.
boosted item level weapons from Algalon or Yogg-Saron, for example. You bet the gold seller, honest players running 24 GDKPs a week are after that payout. That right there is the big distinction between GDKP back then in 2008 to 10 and today.
What's that?
Gold can replace a guild, but it ain't cheap. The main reason...
That's not true. Bro, like, for the longest time, like, my friends and I, we weren't in a guild. We're just mercenaries for hire. You pay us, we go up in the raid, we get the shit done. You give us the money, we come back next week. Yeah, that's all. That was one of the best things about it back in the day. Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Absolutely. I never did this shit with my guild. I always did it with pugs.
Reasons are that A,
good deal,
turns out the content is still pretty easy for us. B, people are just generally much better at the game. We understand it better, we know how to min-max better, we know all the tactics in advance. And C, the stakes are higher. There's more gold involved now than there ever was before. And with GDKP...
I just can't believe somebody fucking GDKP's next 25-man, man. Like, I mean, how bad do you have to be a buyer in the next 25-man raid? I mean, come on. It's not that hard.
becoming a lot more visible, there's been a lot more criticism of it. What was once curiosity has now for many turned to disdain. Where there was once pug runs and soft reserve runs, now there's gold runs. Gameplay has been replaced by a race to reach the finish line and restart a new character. One such post from a Chinese player
That's right, boys. That's how it works, right? You buy the game, then you buy the expansion, you buy the level boost, you buy a level dungeon runs up to level 80, then you buy gold, and then you buy BOEs off the auction house, then you buy enchants for the BOEs, and then you get into a GDKP raid, you buy the gear out of the GDKP raid, you have to buy new enchants and new gems for the gear, you also have to buy the Hodir relics to get Hodir exalted, and then you buy the shoulder enchant for the shoulders that you bought, and then after that you get that much gear, and so you start doing arena, you buy a carry to 2k so you're able to get all the deadly gear as well, and at that point you're finally able to play the game. It's exciting, huh? It's just like it used to be. Finally, you can play the game.
Classic highlights how after NetEase released the World of Warcraft token on Chinese realms during Phase 2, gold farmers flocked to NA as they could make up to 7 times as much from farming there. And
yeah, because literally the people here spend more fucking money than the people over there. It's that simple.
This day, North American realms always seem to be the region that has the most attempts at botting. The WoW forums and Reddit frequently
Well, the reason why is that NA has the best economy. So we have the most money. You want to fish where the fish are. And if you might as well be fishing, you're going to fish for the big fish. And there's a lot of big fish over here in the US.
Arguments that GDKP has gone too far. It's replacing the game with paid services, clearly incentivized by buying gold for real money. What was once guilds running old content back then has turned into a substitution for raiding with a guild.
Which I think is okay. That's emergent player behavior. I think that almost all emergent player behavior in a video game is good.
GDKP has also very quickly and clearly become the most lucrative gold farm possible in the game. Why on earth would I go herbing or farming in the open world when I can pocket potentially thousands of gold for an easy raid clear for somebody else's fresh alt? Again, it's hard to argue with the results, but Blizzard, so far, have been pretty content to leave this player-made environment exist. In the past, they've gone after other player discoveries such as boosting, which they finally determined as being not healthy for the game. It is still possible, just to a lesser degree than it once was. Should they go after GDKPs next? How would that even be done? There's hardly going to be a GM watching over every raid, is there? For me in this situation, I've never really been a fan of the whole GDKP system. Of course, I think beyond anything else it encourages gold buying, though I will say since TBC, the actual need for gold in order to get consumed, raid, PvP and so on.
It's not that bad in Wrath. Like, you don't really need to do it. I'm gonna be real. I actually think that GDKP is great. I used to participate in a lot of GDKPs as a player and also as running the GDKPs myself. I love them. I thought they were really fun and enjoyable. I got a lot out of them. It made it to where I didn't have to farm gold. I could just, use my gear and be able to play the game in the way that I wanted to and pay for my own shit on my own. It was great. I think GDKPs are really good. I also dislike the idea that you should punish the entire player base because Blizzard decided not to moderate their own game. What they're effectively saying is that you can no longer engage in this emergent player behavior because we are unwilling to finance GMs to ban people that are botting and buying gold, which I will simply not accept. Like, I would rather not play a game than see a game's quality diminished because of some bullshit like this. Oh, we can't beat the gold sellers? Yeah, you can. You easily can. You've got to be a fucking moron to not be able to figure it out.
Is just way down on what it was in Classic. But it's not just that, it's just kind of GDKP breaks what the game is all about for me, and here's what I mean. For me,
opposite. For me, my class fantasy, mainly, is being a mercenary. Being tied down to no one. existing on my own, by myself, for myself, with a handful of loose associates that we sometimes get together and we pull off an event, you know? That's what I like doing. So personally, like my class fantasy, my MMO fantasy is being a mercenary in that way, right? And it's an ebb and flow, right? Sometimes you like that. Sometimes you like, you know, being in a guild and like running a guild with like your group of friends. Usually I go back and forth, and this is what I've always done.
Classic, and I guess WoW as a whole is like a pyramid of content. At the bottom you have leveling your character, and then you have the middle portion, your farming badges, your prebis, professions, enchants, gems, gold farming, all of that good stuff. And right at the top of the pyramid is raiding. That's the peak. That's what it's all
Well,
for.
like there used to be a bug where this shit would kill you even if you were this far away. And I got killed by it, and everybody said that it was my fault, but then there was a patch notes, and it said that it wasn't my fault because like they changed the hit radius of it, and then everybody said I was lying, and then I showed the patch notes of it, and then they just called me bald, and it's like you just can't win. But it wasn't my fault whenever I got hit by that. No, and this isn't the recent one. Like the recent one that I stood in, I got hit by, that was totally my fault though.
That's why I'm going out to learn my class, seeing what talents work best, making sure I have the correct consumables and so on. I want to do as well as possible when I raid. So when I take raiding and then just turn it into another gold farm, it's like the top of the pyramid has been taken off and thrown into mid-game content. It's just not...
No, because like if you were one of the carriers for GDKP, you had to be stacked. You had to know what to do. You had to take initiative. You had to have the gear. You had to have the enchants. You had to be fucking ready to go. So yeah, it's like if you were a carry for GDKPs, you had to be good.
What raiding should be for me. I farm gold so I can raid. I don't raid to farm gold. And I like to keep those two things completely separate as much as I can. But again, that's just me. I think there's definitely a divide between players who are more loot driven and are more content driven. I mean, how many people did you hear quit back in Classic or TBC after they got that one item they've been after forever? You can even test this too. Take this example. Imagine the scenario. You're doing a speedrun with your guild of next 25.
That's what happens to me every time. The moment I finish my best in slot, I say, later, bitch. But GDKP's changed that. And I remember I would come back, even after I got my full best in slot in Dragon Soul, if we had 2 buyers for the mounts, yeah, I show up. Yeah, I show up. Yeah, why not?
You're not aiming for world first or anything, just trying to get your 1 hour 15 clear down to a 1 hour 5 minute clear, for example. And in the end, everything goes amazingly, better than you could have possibly imagined, and you get a sub 1 hour clear. Not only that, but you get immortal as well because nobody died. However, nothing dropped that you wanted. Or would you prefer joining a GDKP weekly of next 25 and 2 BIS items for you go for really cheap? Imagine you're on your warrior and Grimtoll and Betrayer of Humanity.
Bro, that's literally what it was for me. It was literally Brintroll. I minimum bid that shit. I minimum bid that shit because it was heroic, and minimum bid was 5K. I bid that, and I was I was holding my breath. Nobody bid this shit up. And then I got it. I remember I got that fucking that weapon, and I used it to solo shit all the time because it would proc like crazy whenever you were playing prot. Oh my god, Grimtoll? Oh, Brintroll's the same thing. Grimtoll, like, yeah, I guess people use that. Yeah, Grimtoll. Is that the Tin Man one? Maybe it's not. I don't remember.
Drop for only a few thousand gold each, or being a caster and getting Dying Curse and the Turning Tide for the same amount. Which scenario would you feel better about? Amazing run with your guild, or cheap epics in a GDKP? Not the
loot for nothing and perps for free. Let's get that. Or minimum bid.
There's a wrong answer, it's just people are motivated differently, that's all. In any event, it appears that GDKP is here to stay. Having become popular in Classic so much earlier than it ever did in Vanilla, it's now grown into a core gold farm and alt gearing system for many players around the world. Though honestly, I'd rather it wasn't really a thing. I don't see a realistic way to actually stop it from happening. Even if you stop people advertising it at this point, it's so well established, people would just go...
The reason why I like it so much is like it gives a player that doesn't have a lot of time but is good at the game a rewarding and guaranteed way to make money. Because, like, if you have good gear and you know what you're doing, you can join a GDKP as a carrier and you can get all the gear. Or, sorry, you can get all the money and you don't need the gear. So, like, it gives you a reason to continue playing the game. I think GDKP is so good.
Seeking it out. I guess it's a bit of a testament of how players choose to engage with the game differently nowadays. Everyone wants something of value for their time when they're playing a video game, and no one wants to waste their time playing World of Warcraft. Makes you think a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, hope you liked the video. If you did, drop a like, it helps out. Let me know your thoughts and experiences on or in GDKPs if you have any. And as always, thank you for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Mega fan of GDKP. Yep, I love it. GDKP equals Giga Dick keeps pounding. True. And that's what we used to do. This is a good Wooly video. I'm glad to hear other people talking about this. You never done it? Bro, I was doing GDKPs whenever you were probably in fucking middle school. You probably didn't even know what porn was. I already had a fucking GDKP item. Shut up, bitch. The fuck out of here. I want to hear your shit. There you go. Let me link y'all the video. That's a good Willy video. I remember I saw this a day ago. I was like, oh my god, I have to watch this. I cannot wait to watch this. I was so excited to see this one. Everyone whined about Dungeon Boost, but GDKP are fine. I didn't whine about Dungeon Boost. I never whined about that shit. There's no reason for it. Have you seen the Platinum WoW new video? No, I haven't yet. Wonder what killed Vanilla Classic for me? GKP was everywhere. Gold buying was rampant and destroyed any meaning in the game for many. Bro, like, what do you mean the meaning in the game? Where, like, you and a bunch of other dumb fucks get together and get a bunch of world buffs and kill Kel'Thuzad? Like, what do you think is a meaning in the game? Like, get the fuck out. It's a joke-ass fucking game. You beat the fuck out of that game 15 years ago. Like, what meaning in the game? You know what meaning in the game is? There's a dollar amount for that fucking meaning. And sometimes that was like 20,000 gold in the pot, man. I get 9K out of some of those runs. That was some big fucking money. Yeah, 2 fucking mechanics. What's your point? The point is that, like, the meaning in the game is just bullshit. Like, you're gonna try to make the excuse, like, oh, it ruined GDKP for you? Then don't fucking do it, bitch! Then don't fucking do it. Quit telling everybody else what they gotta do. You don't like GDKP? Don't fucking do GDKP. Damn, it's not hard. God, it's such a bunch of fucking pussies, man. I hate this. Ugh. Stop making it sound so easy. Oh, it's so hard to get a group of people that have the same mindset as me. They better change the whole game. Get the fuck out of here.